All right, guys. One of the big hot button topics in, let's call it normie political discourse right now is over the Barbie movie and its lack of nominations at the Oscars. Now, don't get me wrong, it did well with the nominations. It got 8 nominations, which is incredible for a IP blockbuster based on a children's toy. However, there is a section of Barbie fans that feel that the movie is getting snubbed because and snubbed due to the patriarchy and sexism of Hollywood and everything, which totally exists. But their argument is that Ken getting nominated, but not Barbie, is evidence of sexism in Hollywood. Now, not only does this go against the themes of the movie, which I won't even get into very much because neither of you have seen that movie, but I just thought it was one of the most absurd on its face arguments that I've ever heard that an actress was snubbed for Best Actress due to sexism in favor of another actress. It seems so absurd on its face, but I found so many people when I talked about this, they're like wearing this on their sleeve. They're saying with their whole chest that this is evidence of sexism, that Margot Robbie didn't get nominated over another actress. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of sexism in Hollywood. There's so much fucking institutional patriarchy in Hollywood. And my whole thing was just like, there's plenty of evidence for this. Don't call the one thing that is so obviously not due to sexism something that's due to sexism, because then you're going to be the boy who cried wolf, right? But I found it just interesting that Barbie, this, when it first came out, sparked huge political discourse. Like we had Ben Shapiro filming a video of himself lighting a Barbie on fire. Like it is
While he was dressed up as Ken.
this movie has been a political lightning rod, and it has, just like you guys haven't seen the movie. I've seen people arguing again like tooth and nail over this who haven't actually seen the movie, but the themes of this movie, for whatever reason, this has struck such a chord. And so my question to you guys is twofold. One, as someone who hasn't seen the movie, just someone who's seen the marketing and heard other people talk about it, why do you think this is? And then we'll get to my second question after that. I'll go to TJ first, since Leah was telling
Of
me how
course
excited
you
she was to talk
would.
about this.
Of course you would. Of course you would pick the man first. But
You
I
sexist.
I should have known when you said boy who cried wolf and not person who cried wolf. But I was so, and I when I saw this story that people were upset that Ryan Gosling was nominated and not Margot Robbie. But once again, I said, well, I don't know. I mean, like, if I maybe Ryan Gosling did a shit performance and Margot's was great. Maybe that's why they were mad. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's not why they're mad. They're mad because of what you said, because they said, oh, this is like going against the message of the movie and everything. And like, of course, like the man got nominated for this. I was like, okay. The first thought I had, do you guys remember Oscar So White? Do you remember hashtag
Yeah,
Oscar
yeah.
So White? Yeah, this was a long time ago, but like maybe 8, 5, 6, it was a long time ago. But
It was like right before Black Panther. Like I remember like Black Panther getting nominated with like a million nominations was like oh, Oscars
oh,
ain't
we're
so
making
white.
up
Look
for
at
it. Yeah,
this.
yeah.
We like Black Panther. Uh,
Yeah, so for Leah, if you don't remember, it was an Oscars ceremony in which there were like almost no black nominees or something, or fewer than like the percentage of people who worked in Hollywood that were black. And there was this big social movement. And back then I was like, I do not give a shit. I don't. I mean, maybe I really don't. And I was like, listen, like if I were in the industry, yeah, then I would care. But who wins an Oscar? I lose zero sleep over that. Like none whatsoever. Like, I mean, once again, sure, I am for representation and that, I don't think that it's cool to rob deserving minorities or women from the accolades they deserve in their industry. But as far as stuff that I'm going to care about, it doesn't crack the top 50. It just doesn't. And this is also weird to me. Now, to your point, you said, John, where it can't really be sexism since you can only nominate women for Best Actress. That's how it works. But Margot Robbie was nominated for. Well, first off, she's been nominated for 2 Oscars. I checked. She's been nominated twice, so it doesn't look like they have some sort of axe to grind against her. But also, Barbie was nominated for Best Picture. Best Picture goes to the producer. And there are 4 producers of this movie, one of whom is Margot Robbie. So she actually was nominated for one. And it was they did have a nomination for Best Supporting Actress, which was America Ferrera, who I haven't seen anyone mention this at all. Well, I was surprised to see that they did have, you know, a woman nominated in this film. So I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I really don't. Like, it just reminds me of the Oscar so white thing, and I rolled my eyes at that. And I don't know, the fact that it won so many, I mean, it got so many nominations, and Margot Robbie actually was nominated for one, just wasn't for Best Actress. I was like, okay, well, who cares? I don't know. But what do you think, Leah?
To me, the whole thing, like, as someone who, again, I haven't seen it, I wanted to,
Yeah.
haven't gotten around to it. To me, I don't know if it's just because of my side. Again, we've talked a lot on the show about our little bubbles. I don't know if it's just that my little bubble has been screaming through the roof from the rooftops that this is just white feminism.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that's why that's my opinion, is because that's what I'm getting from it, in my little bubble. But that is kind of just the vibe that I'm getting. Is like it just screams like it's like the same people who get mad when we talk crap about Taylor Swift because she is awful for climate change. Sure, she got a whole bunch of people to vote, but like her jet is single-handedly gonna sink an island. So like I want to kind of shit on her for it, and she's a billionaire, so I get to do that. And there are no good billionaires. And then people come out of the woodwork and they're like, "That's mean," and I'm like, "No, like calm down." That's what I kind of got from this. Of like, it seemed just the level of outcry. I was kind of just like, it was very much like what you're saying of like this gets your top 50. Like this is what, like, you are going to bat. And even for the people who you said who haven't even seen the movie, it's like this is the thing that gets you going. We've got an ongoing genocide. And this is the thing that gets you going. Is which really, really rich person is gonna get another reward? Like, to me, it's so mind-blowing, and it just reminds me of, like, I am not the same as the normies, as I just have spent so many years in politics that I've stepped so far away from it, that as much as I can still engage with the movie, and as much as I do think that, and, like, I know that we wanna talk about what role movies play in politics, as much as I can agree with that, I don't know if I can necessarily gel with the regular normie fan base of the movies. And that's where I really struggle these days, because when they get so mad about this, I'm like, y'all, it's not that deep. It's just not.
Leah, sometimes I have like a planned series of segues, and I just really hope our guests are going to hit them correctly. And you just set me up so good here. Like I couldn't have written your response myself to say what I'm about to say. So I think you make a great point here, where you see these mostly white women liberals, getting their feathers ruffled in a bunch, and us in our bubble kind of knowing we've seen this play out before. They're going to get their feathers ruffled in a bunch, and they're going to care a lot about this, but they're not going to care when miscarriages increased by 300% in Gaza because of the bombings that their president is currently supporting over there. And yeah, it pisses us off. Like it's such, like TJ was saying about how if you play a note, you play a wrong note, you play an E instead of a G, it sounds bad but not terrible. If you play a G flat, oh my God, it's going to sound awful. And that's what it kind of looks like. It's like, oh, you're pretending you care so much about this, but if you look at the rest of your policy, you really don't. And that pisses us off. And I think that might be the wrong way for us to look about it, because I think that us playing pissed, we are pissed off, but us like taking that position of being pissed about this is the wrong way to go about it, because it gives us points with our base, with our hyper bubbled leftist base. They're all supporting us on that because they're also pissed off about it. But I think that it's better and more effective to try and extend the olive branch. How we were kind of talking about how getting pissed off at the no vote leftists protesting about Israel, how the liberals like get pissed off about that and it's never going to change their mind. I'm not so sure that, as much as we're going to feel anger, that's the most effective way to engage with these sort of mainstream political discourse discussions. I don't know, what do you think about that?
I was just going to say, I wonder though, and I don't know, this is an interesting conversation about identity politics, because I kind of agree with you for that strategy of like extending the olive branch for y'all, because y'all, no offense, this isn't really, kind of offensive, men are trash, but y'all are men. So if you come out and you're like, this isn't sexism, you're wrong, it really does push women away, because it's like, you're not listening to me, and I'm having an outcry of like, this is wrong, I feel slighted. And you as a man are telling me, no, that's not sexism. I know what real sexism is in this system. I'm a real leftist, no true Scotsman type of fallacy of like, I know better than you. And it's something that hits women close to home because we do experience more sexism. With that said, then on the flip end, I'm like, well, maybe I can still trash on them. And I don't know if that's maybe just because I want to still trash on them. So like, perhaps that's my instinct of like, well, I can, but you can't. But I do just think that like, we need as white women who like, oftentimes we have this history of like, yes, we were crucial for the suffragettes. Don't get me wrong. We were important for some feminist literature and for making that more popular because of the power, the position of power that we hold as white women. That is 100% true. All of that is valid. However, at the same time, we have so many failures in white feminism specifically, to where I do think that there is benefit of calling it out when we see it, because you're right, they should be more pissed about the 300% increase. They should be more pissed about the increased infections due to the lack of sanitary pads for menstruating people in Gaza. They should be more pissed about that. So I think that calling them out, as much as it can make them uncomfortable and it can make them step away during that conversation, I think that over time, especially if it's coming from someone who looks like them, as much as that's dumb and identity politics of like, because I look like them, they'll take me more seriously. But I feel like me being like, no, like as a white woman, I am more worried about the brown women who are getting bombed than the rich white woman who didn't get her award. And I think that you should be pissed about that too. But I wonder what you guys think, because obviously I'm playing that card and I still just, again, want to shit on them.
Well, I don't know if I see what you're saying, because yeah, obviously the critique does have more power behind it when it comes from the group that is supposed to be identified with it. But I mean, the way I see it, an argument stands and falls on the basis of its own merit. It just does. If you can't make a convincing case to me for it, I'm not going to pretend you did. Like, I'm just not. And especially if someone's like, they're acting like they're Mary Wollstonecraft or something, because they're like, oh, we need to make sure that this person got an Oscar. Like, how does this matter? How? I just don't. I mean, I guess maybe this is actually, I said this before, that the only time I would take this kind of critique or a complaint about this seriously is like if you're a member of the Screen Actors Guild, or like that's the group or something that I would actually hold some respect for, because it's like they would know who got snubbed and who didn't, or like that's part of their craft and like an industry that they're involved in, they care about. Okay, I understand your concern, but you're just a random person and you really give a shit like who wins an Oscar? I'm sorry, I just don't. Like whether you're talking about someone's race, gender, or whatever. I just it would be hard for someone to make a convincing argument that I should care about this. That's and I'm not going to go out of my way to shit on them. Like, I haven't talked about this once. I haven't made like any videos or posts on or anything like that.
Well, we also haven't seen the movie.
Well, true. Well, but there's the thing. That's right. I wouldn't have to see the movie to like remove from like the actual point that the someone not getting an Oscar doesn't bother me. Like, if I loved this movie and I thought her performance deserved an Oscar, sure, okay, I guess that crowd could work too. But once again, it's just like I have a hard time like burning a lot of calories talking about it.
Well, so that's I think like that's the point I want to get at here, because yeah, you have a hard time burning calories about this. But what you said earlier, it wasn't this conversation, but it was in a different video, which is probably going to play chronologically after this one. So if you're in the audience right now and you want to hear this take from TJ, definitely like and subscribe. Hit that bell button, But what you're saying earlier about how it's you're not going to win in politics by persuading people. You win in politics by mobilizing. And as much as, yeah, I also agree with you. Like, I love Barbie. I will talk about movies till just talk shit about it. The thing is that it does burn calories for a lot of people. Like you said, the Oscars so white thing. Like, yeah, that was a big thing. The Oscars, for whatever reason, is a huge cultural thing. And so often it's one of the few cultural things that are kind of innately tied with politics, because movies are innately political. It's a very political art form. And every year there's going to be some sort of highly political message movie that's in mainstream Oscars discourse. So I guess my question is, to the group here, that how can we co-opt that? Because I see that as opportunity. I see that as opportunity to co-opt a movement and help get those people to this side of things. And how Leah was saying, they should be called out. And I think that there's a certain amount of truth to that. That like they should be but I think they should be led to the water. I don't think you can force them to drink it, but I do think that like there are ways to, in another episode that we're going to be talking about, Leah was talking about how, a downside of the, progression of capitalism that we're in is that celebrities, the oligarchy is starting to mix with politics at an ever increasing rate. And the separation is starting to disappear. But I also see that as an opportunity. Like, I think that there are a lot of actors, artists out there who, if the financial incentives flipped a little bit, just a little bit, could really take advantage of this kind of thing. And I guess the question is here, like, when we see things like this happen and people caring about feminism, even if they're wrong, which I think they're wrong in this case, but even if they're wrong, there's opportunity to mobilize and to reach out. And I guess, like, what would be, the way we can, because we see this time and time again, is all I'm saying, is that huge mobilization over movie-related political mainstream discourse that we never seem to capture. And so, like, really open forum here. How do we capture that kind of excitement and energy? Even though we think they're wrong, they're wrong for the right reasons. So, like, how can we focus on those reasons?
So I've often been an advocate of the opinion that culture doesn't follow media as much as media follows culture. That I think that it's like it's just a growth of what the society is. And what I point to a lot of times is whenever conservatives would criticize, they say, well, the reason the black community is suffering is because of gangster rap, like it's 1984 or something. Like they always say that and everything. And it's they say, see, what happened was, Eazy-E and Ice Cube got on the radio and started singing about, violence and, gang activity and drug use. And then black kids listened to it and they loved it. And they all went out and decided to grow up to be gangsters. And of course, that discounts the fact that the majority of people who listen to that are white people, still is today, and the gangster rap isn't around much anymore, is that they neglect the reality that the music from the 80s were singing about violence and gang culture was a reflection of the world that already existed. Like, they didn't create it out of thin air. And so I think the same works with film, or with the movements about film, is that that's already part of the culture, and that the culture isn't about class consciousness yet. It's just not there. And so, but what we do have, so what Leah mentioned, was a lot of like identity politics stuff, and that people's, believe it or not, their criticism, their understanding of a lot of these issues is pretty shallow. And so they start to project it on things that they're familiar with. It's like, oh, this person who I like, the celebrity that I'm in love with, didn't get their proper treatment, so I'm going to be angry at that, and kind of view it through the lens of the limited understanding they have about these issues. So I don't know if it's so much about us taking it and running with it. It's just that that's the way it already is, and it won't change until they grow there themselves. Like, what do you think, Leah?
I think that my thing that I keep on thinking of is that I don't know if it's just that that my innards, that my inside is opposed to extending an olive branch to these people for like own personal reasons. I don't know what is wrong with me mentally, but every time that you mention it, I keep on being like, no, like I just want to swat at them. And I think that that's something that I obviously need to work on, because again, I've talked about numerous times with, like, I am in my little bubble, and as much as that little bubble helps me feel not alone, it is still a bubble. And in order to get this movement off the ground, we need bigger than my bubble. So I think, oh my God, kitten. And so I think that's something that with this specific example of, I understand not wanting to alienate the base, similar of like, how they always make jokes of like, don't ever go after K-pop, because those fans,
oh my God,
they'll go after you. And same thing with like Taylor Swift. And I feel like I understand that strategy of like, you don't want to alienate a group that is so close to being on your side, when you could try and convert them. But at the same time, I feel like because they're so close, that pushing further will actually get them closer to us than welcoming them in prematurely, in my mind. So like making them have that realization of like what TJ was saying, of like the reason why we have this gut instinct of like, why do you care, is because we're poor and struggling. I can't afford my meds. Like, we have other fish to fry that you too, as a white woman in America, probably are experiencing somewhat too. You probably have your own struggles that are larger than this specific plight. And so reframing it in that way of like, the reason why we don't see solidarity with Margot Robbie or with this or with these celebrities is because they are a different class. They're richer. They have more capital than any of us combined do. And so that's why increasing that class consciousness through pushing them is what I lean towards. However, I do agree with you, John, that there are a lot of people who, when you push them, they turn their back. It's not like they step backwards and then they reflect and they come back, similar with the far right, when like I will talk to them for hours and hours and hours, and I'll get them to like my position, and then fast forward 2 days, they're right back where we started, because the cognitive dissonance just doesn't compute. And I think that that's where then I fall on, I don't know how to mobilize that. I think that that's a huge problem for the left. I think that we have the right messaging. Palestine is a good example of it, of like, especially with the young crowd, they are on the right side of history, the majority of them. They're hungry for it, but we just can't. I mean, even with the Starbucks strike and the Stanley Cup, like there's so much just cultural stuff that I'm just sitting here flabbergasted at. How is that what you care about? Like, your grocery bills are probably like mine. They're through the roof. You can't afford gas, and yet you're sitting here caring about that. And so it's just so hard to relate to these people. But ultimately, you're right that if we want to grow in size and if we want to grow in power, we need to relate to them some way, somehow, which is why I think I rely on identity politics, because the rest of me just can't. I'm like, my white skin and my seemingly cisgendered self may get them to trust me, and I've got nothing else.
You know, Leah, the funny thing of like what you just kind of described there, like maybe they need to be pushed. Like, I really think that if you look at it from our perspective, because that is exactly the argument that liberals make who are yelling at the no votes for Biden. Like, that is the exact argument of they need to be shown that they are wrong and need to be told that they are wrong. We can't let them continue to think this because it's dangerous. It's dangerous and will not help our movement. And I think it works exactly the same way. And so my question to you is, how did you get into this? Like, how did you slide down the left slide? And did it come from being aggressively pushed, or did it come from being made to feel understood? Because I know that I come from a very different angle than a lot of leftists do. And it does very much change my interactions with the left, because I don't come, I feel like a lot of people come to the left via activism. People get involved in activism and then they get all of the theory and literature. And I didn't. I came from economics. And I started studying economics, and I found leftist economists that I really liked. And that is how I got there. So it's completely different. I got into like the theory and all that like way later. So like I'm interested, like what pushed you down the slide, and was it the thing that you are saying that you should do
advocating for?
yourself?
Like, am I speaking for? Yeah, no, definitely. I think that I am. I think that that's a part of why I take the approach that I do, is that it worked for me, and I am a stubborn motherfucker. So if it worked for me, I hope that it can work for someone who's less stubborn than I am. And the reason why I ended up falling left was because I had someone in my life who was willing to call me out on my BS, to be like, if you stand for feminism, then you must stand with Palestine. Like, that was such an early lesson that I had to learn, that for me, it definitely, I had the knee-jerk response that most humans do. When you're told that you're wrong, you don't like it. Like, it's not like, oh, I really enjoyed that criticism. Could you hit me somewhere? Like, some people have that kink, I don't. And so, like, for me, it was very much that it was the kick in the ass that I needed, and that in conjunction with the academic background that I was building of anthropology, public health. I'm French, so I have that cultural side of like, revolution is sometimes the answer, and it's something that's celebrated. That I think that it was the perfect mix that got me to where I am. However, with all of that said, my best friend is she identifies as a socialist. She agrees with me on, I would say, 98% of things, 99% of things. But she, no matter how long, and we went to the same college, we've been best friends for 6 years now, like we are close. And no matter how much I push her, she refuses to take that step to being like, I am a communist. She just can't. It's just not, it's not in her cards. I've tried everything that worked with me. I've tried everything that has worked for me to convince other people. She just, it's not for her. I don't know how else to explain it other than like, I can't do it. Maybe someone else can, but I can't. And I think that that's where then I fall with a lot of these people of like, if I can't show them the way that I walked, I'm not sure that I know how to lead someone down a path that I've never been. I don't know if I can get them to fall down a different left slide than the one that I did. And I think that that's also an interesting dynamic for all three of us, is that if you look at our pages, we all have different faces. And I think that that's the thing about this podcast, is you guys bring together people from the left who have different bubbles. And the reason why we have those bubbles is I wonder if it's because we're all walking them down our own path, and that works for some people and that doesn't work for others. And then overall we get this giant like mess of people who got there some way, somehow, some through economics, some through being an EMT. TJ, I have no idea what got you here. But I think that Hal Kalinske. But I think that the thing is like, I wonder if that's one of the things of like, you have to be that specific person to reach across that aisle, because that's the aisle that you walk down.
Yeah, military service and religious deconstruction is what Robbie got me down here. That's what.
That's a brutal path to take. I just want to say.
Yeah. Trust me, I know. But yeah, it's this is true for pretty much everything. The path, and I find that frustrating because you can only speak the language you know. And your friend says she's a socialist, she can't bring herself to being a communist. That's a weird one to me, because in my experience, a socialist is just someone who's 3 beers away from being a communist. That's that's very strange that she's that staunch on that. That's pretty amazing. But yeah,
fair, for her, it's the revolution. Sorry to interrupt. For her, it's the revolution part. That's the 1%, is that she's there with everything else, but she's just like, I can't see us winning, so therefore I can't support it. And I'm like, well, if you don't try, then we're never going to get there. But anyway, that's beside the point, but that's the difference.
No, I get it. That's true. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of answer what you said, but as far as like bringing people together from different sides of the left sides, we all have essentially similar goals, and that, people don't need to believe everything that I believe on that. I'm cool with it. But as long as, people say that they always say this about, the right and the left, that, hey, the thing is, we have different paths, but we all want the same thing. No, we do not. So we do not at all. Like, the world we envision is not the same as the world right wingers envision. Like, what do they say? Like, right wingers, perfect world to them is an all-white country where people work 80 hours a day in backbreaking labor and have no health care. Yeah, that's
it's the 1700s. It's no roads. You deal with your trash the way that you want. You own people if you want. Like, that's what they. And I was just like, please just have health care for everyone. I don't care if I hate you. Can you have health care?
Yeah. And so we do not want the same world, but those of us that are nominally on the left, we generally do. So if we can work towards those similar goals, I'm cool with that. And yeah, some of them can be kind of annoying, but it's better than the alternative.
All right, guys, thank you so much. If you've made it to this point in the show, that means you made it to the end, and the algorithm is going to send you more of our recommendations, and they're also going to send your friends more of our recommendations. So thank you so much. It really is the best thing that you can do for us, is to watch this long. And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. That is the second best thing you can do for us. Before you go, I want to make sure that you get a chance to go follow Leah, our excellent guest, on all of her socials. So Leah, how about you tell our audience where they can find you?
Yeah, so on TikTok, I go by Petite Leah. So it's PTITE.LIA. I'm French, so sorry that I made that complicated. And then on Instagram, I go by Socialist Sleuths, which I always forget that I'm going to have to say that forever and here on out loud. But it is Socialist, just regular, SLOOTS. So that's on me and bad decisions made in the past. But here we are.
Folks, you just witnessed 3 of the greatest content creators you can find on the World Wide Web. And whether your language is, English, a base Germanic-based language, or French, a beautiful, Latin-based language, be sure to follow all 3 of us and follow this page. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. We'd appreciate it, and so would they.